Okay, what's going on, guys? And welcome to a brand new episode of Energized. Today we have a very special guest on the show.
We have journalist, author, and a Liga expert, Guillem Balague. Guillem, how are you doing?
Hello. All right. How are you both doing? Are you okay?
Yeah, I'm healthy, happy, can't complain. What about you, Barry?
Yeah, just staying as active as we can, and then getting some great guests on the show like yourself.
The idea is to, I think we all got it now. Have a little bit of routine, a little bit of exercise, and make sure that you activate your mind. Because the thing I've just read this morning that the first thing that shuts down is your brain. By repeating the same things, your brain starts going into hibernation, and then everything started to be very, very difficult to actually come back to normal if you let your brain to hibernate. So don't do that.
Yeah, definitely not. It's very important to stay active, both mentally and physically. Obviously, Spain's having a rough time at the moment. How are you getting on there, and what's your like?
Yeah, we're okay. Our family, my partner, myself here, who have spent 25 days now in this apartment in Palamós. This is the Costa Brava. It's about an hour and a half from Barcelona, north of Barcelona. We are fine. This area. It's not a resort area, but it multiplies with the people that come in the summer. So as they haven't been coming, everybody stayed home. This is not very dense part of the world, which means that there hasn't been any problem with supplies. Hospitals haven't been reached the top level, and also there hasn't been many cases, I must say. But we have to be alerted. And our president said yesterday that even though we're supposed to the 26th of April, or he's supposed to come back on the 26th of April to tell us what to do, the warning is that the self-isolation will continue. So just take it day by day. We cannot, whatever we cannot control, we just don't worry about, and just as we were saying, deal with the day to day as it comes.
Yeah. Have you been doing much work there, Guillem?
Yeah, I haven't stopped. There's a whole month of no day offs. In fact, today after I talked to you, doing one thing about the club. And then, because we're United, that is, that I'm chairman of. And then I'm going to try to take the afternoon free, means reading for the book that I'm writing, but at least it's just reading. But it has been I've had to restructure work a little bit because La Liga TV, obviously, we're not doing games, but there were some stuff that we had half prepared. I've got a show in La Liga TV called Talking Football, in which I've spoken to Iniesta, to Xavi. We went to Qatar. We went with Rafa Benitez and Mista, who was a striker at Valencia. We talked about Valencia time. I was with Joaquin and Gordillo, Betis. We had to put all that together, do some voiceovers. Then my paper has gone into, furlough. Basically, they pay half, but they expect the same. So I still, it's called Sport, the paper, so I'm doing work for them. As I said, preparing stuff for the book. The club also has had. We were in the middle of our restructuring, so we had to put some calls on that as well. And BBC, we're doing now the EuroLeague's podcast show and radio show on Sundays. So that's also keeping me busy. Plus, I think those are listening as well. When you see that there is other opportunities out there, other things that you can do with what you can offer, then you try to take advantage. So Rakuten, which is a platform like Netflix is or others, they contacted me to do an interview show, and we're talking about it, so it's all possible.
That's cool.
That's brilliant. Obviously, someone who was immediately affected by COVID-19 was Pep Guardiola. Have you reached out to him, and do you know how he's getting on?
Yes, as you all know, his mum passed away. She was quite weak already, but nobody expected it to happen as quick as this. He was in her 80s. I think she was 82. And I cannot imagine. I don't want to imagine what it means to say to somebody like that goodbye without being able to be there. But
because obviously you helped with this book, didn't you?
Yes, his family were always very generous with the time, especially the parents, especially his dad. Valentin likes to talk about his son and likes to talk about their past together, etc. Mom was always in the background a little bit, but she was a weaver in a factory locally until it all crashed in the 70s. And after that, Pep Guardiola never looked after them from that point of view. His dad was a bricklayer until very late. He built his own the house where they live, and they just when the fame of Pep Guardiola started, they just let him obviously be. They didn't want any protagonism of any kind. There were decisive moments in their lives had to do with his mom, of course, like when Barcelona first approached the family to take him to Barcelona, where he lived in San Pedro. It was about an hour long. It doesn't seem a long now, but it was a long trip in the bus, perhaps even longer, which meant they had to leave their 12-year-old, go to Barcelona to train there and perhaps even stay there. So she said no. At the beginning, he wasn't prepared. He did a trial and was extra nervous, as he always gets, and couldn't sleep. And this is a 12-year-old Pep Guardiola, as you can imagine. As you know, perhaps with a bit more hair, but as excitable as he is now. Mom said no, and then when they came back a second time, before they did, Pep Guardiola said, if they don't come back, Barcelona doesn't come back, I won't be a footballer. And they did come back. Parents sat down. Mom said, yeah, he's ready now. And they let him go. And it was difficult for him to be at 12, 13 away from his family. They traveled every week. But after that, he just became his own man, obviously. Family was always there, available whenever was the time. And he liked going back to San Pedro and see them. This football world takes so much of you that you're hardly able to do that. But when he did, he enjoyed, you know, his parents, especially his mom, brought him down to earth. You know, he was not Pep Guardiola anymore. He was Giuseppe. So,
did he live in La Masia as well?
Yeah, he spent time in La Masia, and also talks about that period as a difficult period because of that, because he had to make his own friends. They all go through it. Perhaps the most graphic of those, there are many cases, but both Iniesta and Messi struggled in there for different reasons. Messi never lived in La Masia, but had an apartment on his own once he decided to stay in Barcelona.
Yeah.
When he decided to do so, his family, mom, sister, two brothers, went to Argentina. He was staying in a flat with his dad. That was hard for a while. And Iniesta as well, as a 12-year-old, he really struggled. And Pep did too, for a bit. But he's an independent man, strong man, and eventually just, got to the hang of it.
Are you from Barcelona yourself, Guillem?
Yes, I was born in the northern part of Barcelona, a district called Horta, which used to be a holiday place for the rich people of Barcelona, and now it was just a district that you can walk almost from town in 25 minutes. But used to be that. That's where my parents, immigrants, both of them. My mom from Andalusia, south of Spain, and my dad from the south of Catalonia. Traveled in the 1819 to Barcelona to look for work, settled there, and married very young. And yeah, we based ourselves there for 20 odd years in Horta. And then at 23, I moved to England.
Yeah, and then is that how you first fell in love with football as well? Was that from supporting Barcelona?
No, I'm an Espanyol fan, and actually, the truth is, I was a Barcelona fan as a kid, because everybody is. So, even though my dad was an Espanyol fan, as a kid, I would just be a Barcelona fan. And then there was a friendly in the 70s where Espanyol beat Barcelona 5-1. So my conclusion was Espanyol is a better team. So I became an Espanyol fan from that point on. And even though we've been in the second division twice since, I never felt sorry for that decision, because defeats show you more about life than constant victories. So I think I learned more about life being an Espanyol fan than and helped me with than being a Barcelona fan.
Yeah,
and that's the Sunderland fan.
Yeah, and being Manchester United fans, we know exactly where you're coming from right now as well. But how did you get into sports journalism as well, Guillem? Because when people, like especially over here in Ireland and the UK, when they think of La Liga, they just think of your face.
It was a little bit of luck. I fell out of love with football when Espanyol lost the UEFA Cup final in 1988. I think it was against Bayer Leverkusen. Sure. Because if I tell you the story, I mean, it used to be a return leg. So We played the first leg, having beaten AC Milan of Baresi and Maldini and all those.
Oh, wow.
Having beaten Inter as well on the way to the final. We played Bayer Leverkusen, and we beat them 3-0 in the first leg. So, done deal, isn't it?
Yeah.
Plus, when we arrived to Leverkusen, there was... they don't have season ticket holders, proper season ticket holders. What they are people that work in the Bayer factory, and they get given a ticket to go to the game. So we felt that there wasn't so much passion about it, so we deserved it morally, ethically, and of course, we had gone 3-0 in the first leg.
Yeah.
And then it was 0-0 at half-time in the second leg, and then we conceded 3 goals. And having left, Clemente was our manager, former national manager as well later on. He had left our 2 best players, Lauritsen, Danish, and Valverde, who was then the manager of Barcelona recently.
Yeah.
Out of the squad altogether. We don't know why, mystery. But we had nothing to bring from the bench, so went to penalties and we're lost. So for like 4 or 5 years, I'd never wanted to watch football. I didn't want anything to do with football. I went to England at the time, not interested. Well, in fact, I thought, which team actually wins here? Because I'm fed up with losing. And it was Liverpool at the time in '91 when I first arrived to England, and then they stopped winning as well. So that was a period.
Of course, Guillem.
Yeah, well, it was. I thought this is not right, but anyway, it got to '96, Euro '96, and I had done all kinds of jobs, distributing bread and working in a pub and writing about all kinds of things, nothing to do with football, and then started working for a magazine called Don Balón, and which is now, the label was bought by a clickbaiting company, and it's rubbish now. It's not them, but it used to be a very prestigious magazine. And became their UK correspondent, and in '96 in the Euros, I covered that. And then at '96, Sky started doing Spanish football. They did it for a year with Rob Palmer and Jerry Armstrong from Manchester, from the Granada studios. And I rang them. I said, look, I'm a Spanish journalist. I want to write about what you're doing. And the producer, Dave Lawrence, invited me to go to the studios. That was October 97 or so, the season had started. And he said, come smartly. And I was going to do that. But I didn't have smartly clothes. I didn't have much money. So I had a much longer beard, big glasses, long hair to here. There's a picture somewhere with that. And
I'll have to look that up.
Yeah, I think it's in my webpage. Somebody put it there. And I asked a friend of mine who always looked very smart with his clothes, can I have a jacket? Forgetting that he was 20 stone. And I wasn't. So it looked really big on me. But anyway, I look a bit smart. And I got to Sky and, right, show's about to start. And you sit there next to the presenter. I said, what do you mean? You're the guest of the show today. All right. Have you done this before? Hundreds of times. It was my debut, of course.
Yeah.
And so they, sat there, and then at halftime, Dave said, look, we thinking of doing a highlight show. Do you want to do it? And I thought about it for about a quarter of a second. Said, yeah, I'll do that. They had asked about 3 other journalists. Them had said no for different reasons. So, if one of them, yes, perhaps my life would have been different, but I smelled the opportunity, and then the rest is history, because I started doing, there used to be 2-hour shows with David Bobbin, which you probably don't remember him, but he was the first presenter of Spanish football with me. And eventually we created a show called Revista de la Liga. The rest is history.
That's great for people tuning in right now to be like, right, when you get an opportunity, take it with both hands, and only think about it for a quarter of a second.
Yeah. It goes like this. Do you want to do it? Yeah. Yes, I'll do it. Why
I've done it hundreds of times.
Yeah. Well, I've done the show. Yeah, I've done television very often, apparently. I did tell Dave much later on, you knew you were taking a chance with somebody who hadn't done this before. And I was like, I've done television for 30 years. I knew you didn't have any clue. But they like the attitude. So, yeah, exactly as you say, you take advantage of situations like this, of course.
Yeah. Well, Guillem, we should definitely get into La Liga, because obviously things are on hold right now, and Barcelona win the league by 2 points ahead of Real Madrid. what's your sort of making of the Liga season this year? Because it seems like Real Madrid and Barcelona have both been getting a bit of backlash, like across from fans and media alike.
Yeah, because they were used to perhaps many people got used to the fact that they're so superior, and there was a time that they were well ahead. That was misconstrued and misanalyzed more in the UK than in Ireland, because people thought see as a rubbish league, and it wasn't. It was just like, imagine a league that had this season's Liverpool's, but twice. Of course, they were going to be better than anybody else. This is the era of Pep Guardiola, Jose Mourinho, and then of course later on with Luis Enrique, they were well ahead of the rest. When you had a from three of Neymar, Luis Suarez, and Messi, it's impossible to compete almost. Yeah. But what has happened is that both Barcelona and Real Madrid are in different times of their recycling, a process that seems to me more intelligently done by Real Madrid than Barcelona. Barcelona, they've focused all their energies and money into keeping the old guard, and now they realize that the old guard needs replacing, most of them, and they don't know who to replace them with, because the facility to maneuver finances. In fact, the crisis will really affect them. They were the first ones to ask the players to reduce the wages, and that's a sign that they needed cash straight away. They had obviously a lot of they're very big worth in their squad and the facilities they've got, but they don't have liquidity, so they cannot really change the squad that easily. So they're gonna be in trouble. Plus, I don't know if you heard, but yesterday 6 directors resign. The president is on his own, and there's a push to do new elections a year earlier. This is when we can go back to the games. Yeah. So all in all, it seems a little bit of a mess. Meanwhile, it's a squad that looks tired, that doesn't have the energy that's required to win the big things. And Real Madrid, on the other hand, they prepared. They're in a little bit of an impasse. You still got, Casemiro, Modric, Kroos, but they're ready to bring the likes of Hakimi, the right back who can play left back as well, Odegaard as well. They've got young players out there who are being tested, and that will definitely help them.
And do you think that if the league does continue, who do you think is going to win it, and do you think it will continue?
Well, I think the need from clubs is for the league to continue and finish. Their television money is huge, more for the other clubs than Barcelona, Madrid, but still they need that money. And they've been paid until the end of May, but there's still another 25% that has to be paid. And the television right holders, they're not saying at all that they will pay no matter what. They want to see the games and somehow broadcast them, if possible, daily, so you can, in a month and a half, have it all played. There's a protocol that La Liga has prepared for that to happen, but I just feel that everybody's very optimistic. I understand the need to prioritize this league and having to finish it. Something, by the way, at Because United, we haven't been allowed. Our leads are null and void, so it never existed. So I had to delete all the memories from it. You go like that, press at bottom, everything is deleted. The goal trees, null and void. Anyway, that's another matter. But yeah, Barcelona, Madrid, La Liga, the Federation want it to continue. But they are preparing a case in which it's not start over next season. If that's the case, nobody has indicated what would happen, as in who will win the league or who will go to Europe. Will there be relegations? They've been more specific in Italy, where they're talking about 4 scenarios, than in Spain in that case. So we'll have to wait. But the push from everybody is for the leagues to finish, and they think that they can go back to playing at the end of May, beginning of June, or even end of June, whenever it is they want to finish it.
Yeah. And what about the Champions League then, Guillem? Do you think that will continue, or?
Quite clearly, the UEFA has prioritized the domestic leagues, and that's been a good thing to do, because it may not be space for everything. So that's the one that looks the most unlikely. Again, the kind of a scenario that La Liga is preparing is one in which perhaps everybody gets together in 11 different hotels, and then they go from training to the hotels, from the hotels to the games, behind closed doors. That's the certain thing. There won't be fans if the season is to be continued. And that would more or less be completed, as I say, in a month and a half. Perhaps UEFA will go for the same kind of a scenario of going to Istanbul for a week or something and play it all day in one go. Nobody's committing to anything, but it is not the priority. That's interesting. So it is more likely that the UEFA competitions get cancelled than the domestic ones right now.
Yeah. Okay, I'm just looking at the Liga, like the top teams, and if there was like a 3-year plan, it seems like Barcelona have like sort of invested heavily in some players and it hasn't really worked out. Real Madrid and Atletico Madrid seem like they've like almost planned for the future. It's like with Messi being at Barcelona, and I think he's like one Champions League behind Ronaldo. Like, what sort of way do you see his sort of career going? Because there's obviously talk about him leaving, talk about him staying, and like you'd be the man that people like would know the most.
Messi doesn't want to leave, but Messi would like Barcelona to have a very competitive team, which at the moment it's doubtful. Say they invested in players and haven't got it right, and that's absolutely true.
Yeah.
The clear case is Coutinho, Artur Melo, De Jong. They can definitely improve the side.
Yeah.
They need a striker. Their idea would be, if they had the money, to get Lautaro Martinez and Neymar, if they could, but they won't be able to do both of them. Possibly not even one, unless there is a clear swap of players, and that's more likely to happen with Inter than with PSG.
Yeah.
So meanwhile, they had put all the eggs in the basket of Neymar to renew the squad to the level that they need. That's what they thought they would do. But remember, as I said earlier, it may be elections. If there are, anything can happen. The board is really it's been criticized from all levels and from all quarters. There is one candidate that will invite Xavi Hernandez to be the manager. If he does that, the idea is to like a Bayern Munich and bring some of the old players to be part of the setup. But right now, it's impossible to predict. In any case, Messi wants to be part of whatever happens, especially if it's positive and makes Barcelona candidates to win things.
Do you think it's going to turn around, or he has enough time for that to happen? Because it seems like Liverpool are getting better and better. Like Man City, once they have a full team back and the Pep stays, they're going to be like competing as well.
It's not going to be easy.
Yeah.
But without having a fantastic team, they managed to get to semi-finals of the Champions League last season, for instance, and beating Liverpool 3-0. And I know it wasn't fair at all. Liverpool were very good in both games. But, Dembélé scores the fourth goal, and then we're talking about a different story. So football is fun, especially in knockouts competitions. I think we give too much importance to the Champions League to try to get big conclusions. It's a knockout competition. It depends on what happens, on your injuries, on the referees, and so many things. Hence, City, perhaps the best team of the last 2 years, except this season. So the 2 years before that, were the best team in Europe. And they haven't been getting to semi-finals, which was one of the targets. How do you explain that? Well, football is funny that way. But to give yourself more chances to win, you have to have things or do things better than Barcelona have been doing in recent times.
Yeah. What way do you see Messi's sort of career changing over the next few years? Because obviously he's going to get a bit slower. Where do you think he's going to try and end up? Like, because don't show the way certain players have changed positions to adapt to their age, like someone like Ryan Giggs.
He's done that already. I remember in the book I did with him and his family, the biography, we were talking in 2012 already about him changing from more of a midfielder, which he's doing now. He's doing the role of Xavi, distributing the ball, Iniesta, beating defenders in the difficult parts of midfield, the Messi bit, sometimes when Luis Suarez is not there, the Luis Suarez bit, and he can do all that because he can. But obviously, he's getting on. So I've always put Qatar as a turning point of his career. He will be 35, and that means, you know, perhaps a good sending off as well to do it in a World Cup. We will see. I know that when he wanted Neymar to come in, the message that Neymar got was, come over, because in a couple of years there'll be no Messi. This was like, and then you will be able to take charge of the team. He wanted to come, didn't happen. I don't think Barcelona did enough for it to happen, but they still will try with the same idea, you know, to share a couple of years with Messi, and then we'll see if Messi feels up for it. Otherwise, he'll be against him.
Do you think Ronaldo leaving La Liga as well has impacted Messi in any sort of way? Because remember, like, they were always scoring, trying to beat each other. Do you think not having that constant rivalry he's maybe not as going for it as much?
If you have that impression, obviously you haven't had a look at the stats, because he's still scoring the same goals. He's still doing the same thing.
Yeah.
He is now having to do more because the team is poorer. So he never needed Cristiano to get to the heights that he's reached. I'm sure he has helped to continue with those heights, because, you know, when you have a nemesis in your life, you aim to do the best all the time. It keeps you, you know, that he said it himself, Messi, that he misses Cristiano. He would have done it without Cristiano anyway. I think most of the things that he's done, but perhaps that extra bit is helped. And Cristiano not being there, which is a law of life. It happens. He hasn't got the age for it, and even though he probably, Juventus are seeing if they can survive with him in there, but they have put him in the market, so he could leave. Real Madrid reacted to that very quickly, saying it's not the kind of signing we will go for, so that's an opportunity missed. I don't know if he'll want to go back to Manchester United or not. That'll be interesting, but certainly Juventus want to save a little bit the money that they put into Cristiano every year. Doesn't mean that it will happen, because the transfer window right now means that swaps is what they're aiming for. People don't want to spend money on anything. And but it's interesting that Juventus feels that financially it's almost like a burden to have Cristiano on the side.
Yeah, and one thing that's been rumoured quite a lot recently is a swap with Barcelona between Neymar and Griezmann. Do you think that's a possibility? Because Griezmann hasn't exactly hit the ground running, and he is French. And then obviously Barcelona have a strong desire to get Neymar back.
Well, as I'm saying, in terms of transfer stories, there's not much happening. So it's a little bit boring to talk about something that's not happening. But in any case, that's what Barcelona would like. They would like to offer Griezmann and then save 70, 80 million or 90 million euros in the pursuit of Neymar. But just this kind of swaps that will happen between clubs that they have a good relationship, and PSG and Barcelona don't have a good relationship.
Well, they did pay the buyout clause. What was that like in Spain when PSG actually went above and beyond and paid the buyout clause? Because normally Spanish clubs are renowned for having, you know, ridiculous buyout clauses that clubs would never pay. When that happened, did that change Spanish football forever?
Change football, because all of a sudden there was more money in the market, and then crazy transfers started to happen. It was disappointing from the point of view of you know, news gatherer, if you like, newspapers and so on, because of course missing on Neymar was big, but also because, you know, all the relationships that you have built around around Neymar, including Neymar himself, to his teammates and to the club. So it was difficult for the story to be followed exactly. Later on, I heard Valverde told me how he found out about it. He was in the first training session in the United States, and Messi was running, like they were doing that kind of running at the beginning to warm up. And Messi approached Valverde and said, "The Brazilian is leaving," and then run away. I was like, "What?" And Valverde had just arrived to Barcelona, so it was his first training session. He had to deal with that, and he was completely out of the loop because it wasn't his business. Coaches in Barcelona, they don't have much influence. So he just had to wait until it all happened eventually, and he had to react to it, and he did very well. In that season, Barcelona won the league and the cup. Did very well, but yeah, not having Neymar has meant that Barcelona has been looking for a Neymar, and then Coutinho came in, and it didn't work out. And Balague came in, and it didn't work out. So they haven't been very lucky with that.
Okay. Also, Guillem, just talking about the Spanish national team. Obviously, the Euros meant to happen this year. They're being pushed back to next year. Like, obviously, being from Spain, having been there for the Euro win, the World Cup win, then the Euro win again. And some of the guys that were part of that team are like nearly just about to. Well, this would be their last competition. Someone like Sergio Ramos, for instance. Is there certain players in the Spanish team now that like you think are really, really going to push on that team and possibly help them win the Euros next year?
I don't think so. I don't think we've got a team to win it. And I know that, you know, Germany could say the same, but they feel quite confident. France have won it in their own way. England, for me, are favourites. But no, I don't think Spain have got what it takes. And what it takes is a very solid defence where you can hardly concede a goalkeeper that saves you, you know, does the miracle saves. Quality goalkeepers, both of them have been struggling. The number 1 and number 2 in De Gea and Kepa.
Who would you prefer there? Sorry, who would be your number 1?
Both of them have got a problem, or have had a problem, which is that the teams don't play like Spain play. But out of the two, the one that plays closer to Spain is Chelsea. So you need a goalkeeper that thinks that way, that thinks proactive, that can pass the ball. I know both of them can do it, but I know also that De Gea has had to develop all the parts of his game because passing wasn't one that Manchester United were that interested in, and still are not. Yeah. So I'll put Kepa ahead of De Gea, but they both, you know, still a year and a half to go. But they struggle at the moment. We don't have clear goal scorers, so you know the Villas and the Torres, they're not there.
What a partnership!
We've got good strikers, but they don't score regularly, and the style is mixed with all the new things, more counter-attack, etc. But I just feel that it's not a strong team. I mean, we did win 3 tournaments in a row, and that was amazing. But the following 3, we've been failing miserably. So now we are in the miserable phase right now.
Yeah, well, speaking of being Irish fans, welcome to the party. But like obviously you have Thiago pulling the strings midfield, and then you still have Piqué and Ramos at the back, like which is like
no, Piqué's gone.
Oh, Piqué's gone now.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
It's only Sergio Ramos from that era.
It's only Sergio Ramos. Oh, okay. What
maybe Cazorla as well. See if he eventually gets picked.
Yeah. What other players in the Spain squad should people be definitely looking out for? Maybe some up-and-coming players that like we haven't seen yet.
Well, you've more or less seen them all, but obviously there's a lot of hope put on Ansu Fati. He must be 17 now, and you can use him. You can use him to be one of the 3 strikers in the 4-3-3 formation that Spain favors. It's the kind of, I'm doing a book on Maradona, and he missed on the 78 World Cup, and obviously in hindsight you think, oh, how could you miss in Maradona? And there's not much point in that debate, even though straight away, just after the World Cup, he already became a big figure, an international figure even when he was in Argentina.
Yeah.
But it wasn't his time. It would have been good, though, I feel, to have him part of the 78 squad, just to see, you know, to learn. And I think Ansu Fati should be part of the European Championships.
Yeah, the same way Theo Walcott was in the England squad back then.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Got a story on that one. So I met Eriksson privately and in the federation offices, and we were doing an interview, and he spent like 10 minutes talking about this player, and I didn't catch the name, so I didn't use it in the interview at all, and none of it anyway was off the record. And I published the interview, and the press officer at the FA said, "Why did you talk about the biggest news that he told you?" What did he tell me? That Walcott was in the squad. But he's only 17 or whatever it was at the time, or 18. But he was in love with him. So you know, sometimes the lesson there is just to listen to everything. And if you don't hear it well, just ask again. What did you say? Who are you talking about?
Yeah.
Which I didn't do.
You said Fati is one person. Is there any other players?
Well, at that level, I'll struggle to find somebody else, because a lot of the players that are going to come to the reckoning, they have been around for a while. You know, Gerard Moreno maybe one, Morata maybe another one. In midfield, you mentioned Thiago, but
on the gaze.
Say again.
Saul Niguez.
Who's that?
Saul.
Saul Niguez. Yeah. Saul, who I like very much, and he can play in different positions. Koke, of course. You know, the names have been there. The ones that, but in terms of who could just, you know, come into the scene, and Ferran Torres is the other one, maybe at Valencia, the right winger. Ferran Torres and Ansu Fati will be very brave to play both of them, but it will be good to have them in the squad. I don't know if you see much of Ferran, but Ferran is not a typical winger, but he can be. He's fast, puts a very cross in, gets into the box, scores. But Valencia want to renew his contract. They haven't been able to convince him yet, so let's see what happens with that. But the two young stars of Spain.
Yeah. Just another question on the Spanish team. Obviously, when Barcelona were taking on Real Madrid, like when Mourinho was in charge and Pep, like there was obviously massive friction. Did that also lead into the senior team, the national team as well?
Not really, because that was in the middle of all the winning era. So Pep Guardiola started in 2008 with Barcelona, and Mourinho arrived in 2009-10, if I'm not mistaken, or 10-11. Okay. So that was still in the middle of that process, because we won the Euros 2012. And I know that Mourinho did his utmost to create division in the squad, and was upset that Iker Casillas was still friendly with Xavi, even though one of the tools that Mourinho was using at the time, as has always used, is to create an atmosphere in which, you know, is you against the world, basically. And at the time, he painted a picture of Barcelona that were favored by the authorities, that you know, they cheated and blah blah blah. So if you create that atmosphere, you players should buy it, because if they don't, then the thing collapses. Well, the players of Real Madrid didn't really fully buy it. For a while they did, until they woke up, and it was like, but they're our mates. They, you know, Casillas and Xavi know each other since they were 15. So they spoke. They said, look, enough of the accusations behind the scenes. Players agreed to that, and Mourinho was very upset because he wanted more of that division. But he came to Spain to divide the country, and for a while he succeeded.
Yeah, because I always thought it was very funny when PK and Ramos lined up side by side, because, you know what I mean, like whenever El Clasico was on, they were at each other's throats.
And they're not particularly good friends, as in they're not like fantastic friends. They wouldn't go out on holidays together or dinner or whatever. But they realized that they had to, because they represent two different ways of being, two different ways of being Spanish, two different ways of playing even. But yeah, they found a common ground, and they stood in that common ground and didn't often leave it, because otherwise it would have been difficult for them to create some kind of connection.
I suppose one thing about Spain at the moment is that, you know, back in that era, I'd say Barcelona and Real Madrid made up about 80% of the team, and now it's probably closer to about 50% of the team. So, like, the players who are playing for Spain now sort of come from all over Spain, as opposed to just those two teams.
Yeah, but that's partly because the other teams have managed to sort out finances, so they can offer good contracts. And Real Madrid and Barcelona, you know, how many players can they have happy? 13, 14 maybe. And a lot of them are the best around, foreigners. So others have gone for the Spanish, and they're paying well. So Villarreal, for instance, in the last 2 or 3 games, they had an 11 of Spanish players, and some of them, like Pau Torres, the centre-back, should be in the national team. Cazorla as well, of course. Gerard Moreno. So they're happy to be in those kinds of clubs. You can say the same of, you know, of Valencia or Sevilla. They're keeping some Spanish players there as well. That generally in other times it would have been Barcelona or Madrid. So the distribution of wealth means that the distribution of talent is also taking part.
Yeah, just before we wrap things up, I can't let you go without asking this. Who would be the top? Like, you've interviewed so many like world class players. Who would be like the top 5 players you've ever interviewed?
Top 5 players. Can it be managers as well, or players?
Well, if they were former players.
Former players only. Okay. Interviewing Messi is always difficult. It's always a challenge, and having 8 commercial events with him meant that even having a relationship still is difficult. So as a challenge, this is one of the hardest. But the last thing I did with him was talk to him about Ronaldinho for the Ronaldinho movie that Ronaldinho is doing about himself.
Yeah.
Which will have a really interesting in the prison chapter, of course.
Yeah.
He was so good. I've seen him evolve from being very shy to being very descriptive and emotional if necessary, and when he feels that the subject deserves it. So all in all, it's as a challenge the biggest. Iniesta, I love talking to him, and he's always been very good to me. Always.
I think that's one of my favorite ever players, like Iniesta, just unbelievable.
Yeah, but keep an eye on the Talking Football show on La Liga TV, because we've done a special with him, and it was just him and I in a sofa talking, with no script, and it was. I really enjoyed it. David Villa, he is brilliant. He's such a gentleman. He's always tells you stories. Feels like I consider him one of my friends, and I think it's vice versa. But either way, he treats you like one. He's very respectful of the profession, and we were
actually at his last ever game for New York.
You were, yeah.
Yeah.
How did he do?
Did he?
Well, New York won, but I think they lost. It was like a second leg, and I think they lost overall. But he scored.
He scored. Yeah, it was in the Yankee Stadium. It was cool.
Yeah,
he's never stopped scoring.
Oh, what a player! What a player! Like, what a player! Yeah, so you have Messi, Iniesta, David Villa.
Yeah, I think in England, Frank Lampard counts as a player, I imagine.
Yeah.
He was always good, and always when we had ideas that were a little bit different. When I was working in the Times, for instance, with Gabriel Macotti, we did this thing that's become more common in recent time, putting two people together, different backgrounds, and see how the conversation went. We got Gianluca Vialli and him, and we went for lunch. I had a really good relationship with his former wife, Spanish. She is Spanish. I'm out a few times, and I've told him things that I haven't told anybody. So he's a friend, but also always gave you really good value. And the fifth one, I enjoyed talking to Lewandowski. Robert Lewandowski, we decided to do for the BBC, for a podcast for the BBC, the art of scoring. So we went into detail into what it means to score, and what's conscious and what's unconscious, and the feelings after a mistake, and his own career had his own up and downs. There's always a lesson to hear from those guys that they've gone through a lot of obstacles. So that's today. That's my top 5.
Well, that's a great 5-side team, but yeah, we'll let you pick one manager to manage that side game, and you can't pick yourself now.
Oh, managers! That's my favorite subject. I love talking to managers, and there's so many. Rafa Benitez, Valverde, Paco Ayestarán. Doesn't have to be very famous, but Quique Sanchez Flores. I spoke to Robert Moreno this morning. Stevie G. There's so many. Klopp. But I guess one that I owe him a lot, and he's always been very, very good to me, is Pep Guardiola. I've learned a lot through working with him. In the book, it was after doing the Liverpool book, A Season on the Brink, with Orion, the publishers, we were looking for another book to do. It took about 5-6 years to decide, and it was, let's do Pep. And I went to him and I said, I don't want to do a book this was the last year of when he was at Barcelona, 11-12, when Mourinho won the league for Madrid. And it was, I don't know if you remember, there was so much tension. The players didn't talk to the media. Pep Guardiola wasn't doing individual interviews. The club was like closed down. And I said, I don't want to do it through newspapers. I want to talk to you and everybody. He said, yeah, okay, let's do it. And that was great. And I remember telling him, the first episode that chapter that I do is psychological. I don't know if you can hear, but there's this car.
Yeah.
Can you hear it?
No, we can hear you.
Oh, all right, okay. There's a car that the alarm goes off about this time for about 5 minutes, and then that's it.
At least it's never been robbed.
Anyway, no, but if it was, I wouldn't miss it. So anyway, I said, would you look at it because he didn't want to look at what I was doing, and he said, no. When the book is finished, I'll go to the bookstore and buy it. So that freedom gives you a lot of responsibility. But obviously, it's how I want to work. And he spoke to me for the Messi book, and he said, I'll never speak about Messi in so much depth because he hurts. And every time there's a big project, I did, when I first came into the BBC, we did this radio show, podcast about music and him. And I thought, he was very, very honest, and he's always been good. So, yeah, that'd be my favorite.
That's a good choice.
And I forgot Pochettino, who we did a book together. But now that
just before we finish up, I have to ask about Pochettino. Where do you think he'll land next? And can he manage Barcelona? I know he's always said he can't do it because he played for Espanyol, but can he manage Barcelona, and where will he end up next?
Pochettino, I have to say, is probably the closest person I've been with in football, managers-wise. And sometimes it's so close that you don't see it. It wasn't an automatic choice for a book until somebody pointed out, and we're like, of course. And again, he's always been very generous. So I have to choose Pep Guardiola, Pochettino. Just going back to the last one. And in terms of doing Barcelona, he was offered Barcelona, and he said no. So he was offered Barcelona just before Valverde was sacked, and he said no. So that's your answer. And in the what next for him, we'll have to see. It looks quite clearly that in the market, players, not many players will move. There won't be big transfers, and at player level, and managers will be the same. All the big clubs are going to keep the managers. With Flick staying at Bayern Munich, it means that Tuchel won't leave PSG. So I think he's going to have to wait at the moment.
That's brilliant.
Guillem,
okay.
I want to thank you very much for giving us your time. I'm interrupting your sunbathing, but we're going to have to get you on again, like maybe before the Euros or something cool. I'm sure we'll stay in touch. But thanks a million for coming on the show. Ross, anything else before we close off?
No, just for everyone watching at home, make sure to like, share, subscribe, and as always,
stay energized.